Title: The Affair That Unraveled Everything, and the Secret I Wasn't Supposed to Know. Part 1. The Strange Phone Call. I never thought my life would turn into one of those stories you hear online. We had it all. My wife, Victoria, and I had been married for 12 years. We lived in a beautiful home just outside of San Diego. Private community. Ocean views. 3 cars in the garage. Our daughter Emily went to a top private school. On paper, perfect. I ran a growing investment firm. Victoria stayed home, raising Emily and managing charity events. She was beautiful, charming, always the center of attention at fundraisers. We were that couple everyone envied. Or at least, they used to. The first crack came from a single phone call. It was a Wednesday night. Victoria was already asleep upstairs. I was reviewing reports in my home office when my phone rang. Blocked number. I normally don't answer those, but something, gut instinct maybe, told me to pick up. A man's voice. Calm. Almost too calm. "You don't know me," he said. "But you should know what your wife's been doing when you're not around." I froze. "Excuse me?" I asked. "She's not who you think she is. I suggest you start watching her closely." Then silence. He hung up. No name? No details? Nothing. I stared at my phone, hand shaking slightly. Was it a prank? A scam? Jealous ex? Disgruntled employee? I wanted to believe it was nothing. But deep down, something told me it wasn't. Victoria had never given me a reason to doubt her. But that's the funny thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come from the people you expect. That night, I barely slept. For the first time in 12 years, I looked at my wife differently. Not because of what I knew, but because of what I didn't. The first doubt. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Victoria was making coffee in the kitchen, humming softly. Her blonde hair pulled back, wearing one of those expensive silk robes I bought her last Christmas. She smiled when she saw me walk in. "Good morning, babe. You were up late again." I forced a smile back. "Yeah, work stuff." I studied her face carefully. Every glance, every gesture. Nothing seemed off. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself a cup, and asked if I wanted breakfast. Just like she always did. For years, I trusted her completely. Never checked her phone. Never questioned her charity events. Never doubted the girls' weekends she took now and then. That phone call had planted something poisonous in my mind. Suspicion. But suspicion isn't proof. I wasn't about to confront her without knowing more. Later that day, while she was out at her weekly charity luncheon, I made my first move. I went to her walk-in closet. The one I never really entered. Everything was perfect, organized, expensive. But what caught my eye wasn't the designer dresses. It was a small lockbox tucked behind a row of handbags. It was odd. Victoria never locked anything. I tried opening it. Locked tight. Combination. No way to open it without making it obvious. I put it back exactly how I found it. Closed the closet door. But now I knew. There was something she was hiding. Later that evening, I casually asked about her day. "Same old," she smiled. "Lunch with Danielle, meeting about the fundraiser this weekend." She was flawless. If she was lying, I couldn't tell. But now I had 2 facts. 1, a strange phone call. 2, a locked box she never told me about. Something was going on. And I was done pretending it wasn't. The lockbox. Before I said anything to Victoria, I called an old friend of mine, Alex. We went way back. He wasn't exactly what you'd call conventional, but when it came to locks, there wasn't a safe, box, or door he couldn't open. I told him the situation. Well, at least parts of it. I didn't give him the full story. Alex didn't ask too many questions. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. "A locked box in your wife's closet." He laughed. "Sure. Sounds like a fun little puzzle. I'll swing by after work." That evening, while Victoria was still out at her charity event, Alex pulled into the driveway. We went straight up to the closet. He studied the small black box for maybe 10 seconds. "This one's simple," he grinned. "Give me a minute." True to his word, it took him less than 30 seconds. One quick click, and the lock popped open. And then, I saw it. At first glance, it didn't even make sense. But as my brain caught up, the blood drained from my face. Inside the box were neatly stacked envelopes, cash, thousands of dollars in $100 bills. Next to the cash, a burner phone. And beneath it all, photos. Dozens of them. Some were old. Trips she took without me, but never mentioned. Pictures with other people I didn't recognize. Men. Not just one. Several. I flipped through them, my hands starting to tremble. One photo stopped me cold. Victoria, sitting at a hotel bar. Her hand resting on the thigh of a man I'd never seen before. Intimate. Comfortable. Like they'd done it 100 times. Alex stood behind me. Silent. Even he didn't know what to say. There were receipts too. Hotel stays. Expensive dinners. Private jets. None of which showed up on any of our credit cards. "You okay, man?" Alex asked quietly. I couldn't answer. My head was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my wife was crumbling right there in my hands. This wasn't some one-time affair. This wasn't even one man. This was organized, calculated, ongoing. I carefully put everything back the way it was. Closed the box. Locked it. "I owe you big time," I finally said to Alex. "Dude, I don't know what the hell's going on," he said, shaking his head. "But you better be careful." He left, and I sat in that walk-in closet for a long time, in the silence, surrounded by her designer dresses and her secrets. Now I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just betrayal. Something bigger was going on. The private investigator. By now, I knew I was in way over my head. This wasn't just about Victoria sleeping around. There was cash, multiple men, trips I never knew about, burner phones. I needed real answers, not guesses. That's when I called Marcus. Marcus wasn't just any private investigator. He was the best. We worked together years ago on a corporate case involving internal fraud. Discreet, professional, and ruthless when necessary. When I explained what little I knew, Marcus didn't react. He'd heard worse. "You did the right thing calling me," he said calmly. "But listen, if this is what it looks like, you need to be ready for whatever we find." I nodded. "I just want the truth, Marcus. All of it." He pulled out a notepad. "Give me everything. Phone numbers, her schedule, where she shops, where she works out, who her friends are, passwords if you have them, everything." We spent over an hour going through every detail of Victoria's life, or at least the version of her life that I knew. When we were done, Marcus leaned back. "I'll start tonight, and I'll update you every couple days. But do not confront her yet. Don't tip her off. The more she feels safe, the more mistakes she'll make." I agreed, and for the first time since that blocked phone call, I finally felt like I was doing something. That night at dinner, Victoria was her usual self. Smiling, laughing, flirting like nothing was wrong. But for me, everything had changed. For 12 years, I thought I knew my wife, but sitting across from her at that dinner table, I was now staring at a stranger. And deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Marcus was about to uncover would be far worse than I was prepared for. The first discovery. 3 days later, Marcus called me. His voice was calm as always, but I could tell he had something. "You're going to want to sit down for this," he said. I was already sitting, heart pounding. "I followed her yesterday. She met with someone at the Fairmont Hotel downtown." Was it one of the men from the photos? I asked. No, Marcus replied. This one's new. Mid-40s, sharp suit, expensive car, a black Bentley with dealer plates. Dealer plates? I asked. Yeah, I ran the plates. They belong to an exclusive dealership. That car isn't even registered to him. He's either borrowing it or being very careful. Marcus paused, then added, They didn't check into the hotel. They met at the rooftop restaurant. Long dinner. No physical contact. This wasn't romance. That surprised me. If not romance, then what? I asked. That's what I'm digging into. Marcus then sent me pictures from his surveillance. Victoria, dressed elegantly, sitting across from a man I had never seen before. Not flirting, not touching, just talking. Serious faces. Occasional smiles. They look professional, I muttered. Exactly. This might not be just about cheating, my friend. There's something else going on here. Marcus continued. I also managed to clone her burner phone's data from the lockbox. I have access to the texts. Hearing that made my stomach turn. And? I asked. You're not dealing with random affairs. She's been communicating with multiple people under code names, financial transactions, drop locations. It reads more like someone running side deals than an affair. That hit me like a brick. Side deals? Yep, Marcus said. Your wife isn't just sleeping around. She might be laundering money. Or worse, moving money for someone. I sat in stunned silence. For 12 years, I thought my wife was a high society housewife. Now, she was starting to look more like a criminal. What do we do now? I finally whispered. We keep watching. The deeper she feels inside her web, the more mistakes she'll make. And then Marcus said one final thing before hanging up. Trust me on this. This rabbit hole goes way deeper than you think. The second life. 10 days passed. Marcus kept digging. I kept pretending. At home, Victoria acted like nothing had changed. We still had our quiet dinners. She still smiled across the table. Still kissed me goodnight. But behind those perfect smiles, a whole different life was unfolding. Marcus called again. This time his voice sounded heavier. It's escalating, he said. I braced myself. For the past 10 days, she's been visiting a condo on Harbor Drive. Same address every time. Always in the afternoons. Always alone. And? I asked, feeling the pit in my stomach tighten. A young man, 28 years old. Name's Tyler Monroe. Who the hell is Tyler Monroe? That's what I'm still figuring out, but he's definitely not one of the men from the first photos. This is something separate. Marcus paused, then added, They spend about 2, sometimes 3 hours together. No one else comes or goes. Blinds closed. Phones off. Whatever's happening in that condo, it's private. I could barely speak. The world around me felt like it was splitting into pieces. Victoria wasn't just involved in shady business dealings. She wasn't just talking to unknown men in fancy hotels. She was sleeping with this young guy, regularly. The man she came home to every night, me, was nothing but a cover for her real life. Marcus continued. I also pulled Tyler's background. No real job. Listed as self-employed, but no business license. His rent is paid through an offshore account. Which means someone's financing him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only was my wife having an affair with a man nearly 15 years younger, but someone was keeping him financially afloat. She's protecting him, I whispered. Looks like it, Marcus replied. That night, Victoria returned home as if nothing had happened. She wrapped her arms around me, kissed my cheek, whispered in my ear, Missed you today. I forced a smile. I whispered back, I missed you too. But inside, Inside, I was ice. I now knew two versions of my wife. The version who smiled at me every evening, and the version who disappeared for hours to be with a younger man, financed by some offshore shadow. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was deliberate, planned, and it was time to go deeper. The secret account. 2 days later, Marcus called again. His voice was sharper now, like a man who just cracked open a locked door. "We found it," he said. "Found what?" I asked. "Her account." Marcus had dug into Victoria's finances. At first glance, everything looked clean. Our joint accounts, her personal savings, normal spending. But Marcus went beyond the surface. "She's running a completely separate offshore account," he explained. "The kind of account you only open when you don't want the IRS or your husband knowing." He continued. "It's registered in the Cayman Islands, roughly 4.3 million sitting in it right now." The number hit me like a punch. 4 million? I nearly shouted. Where the hell did she get that money? "Some of it came from your joint investments. The rest, I'm still tracing. But there are incoming wires from multiple shell companies, and some payments tied to private transfers we can't fully identify yet." Marcus paused. "This isn't just infidelity anymore. She's been building her escape plan." The words made my blood run cold. Escape plan. Suddenly, it all made sense. The burner phone. The locked box. The second life. Victoria wasn't just cheating emotionally. She wasn't just sleeping with Tyler for pleasure. She was preparing to leave. On her own terms. With her own fortune. "Tyler's likely part of the plan too," Marcus added. "He's not just a fling. He may be a placeholder for when she leaves you entirely. She's funding him to keep him loyal." That reality crushed me. All these years, I had been nothing but the backup plan. "How long?" I asked. "At least 18 months, based on the earliest transfers I found," Marcus said. "A year and a half. While I was busy building our future, she was building her exit." I sat in silence for a long moment. Then I finally spoke. "Keep digging, Marcus. I want to know everything before I move, because now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about total destruction. The hidden camera." By now, my patience was razor thin. But Marcus kept me grounded. "We're close," he said. "But if you move too soon, she'll bury everything." He was right. I needed undeniable proof. Something she couldn't twist. Something no lawyer could argue against. That's when Marcus offered the next step. "We install cameras," he said. "Not just outside surveillance. Inside. Discreet. High definition. Motion triggered. No cloud uploads. Fully encrypted local storage." I didn't hesitate. "Do it." 2 nights later, while Victoria was at another charity meeting, Marcus and his tech guy came over. They moved like professionals. Fast, silent, efficient. By the time they left, our home was wired. The living room, the study, the master bedroom, her walk-in closet. Every key location was covered. "Now we wait," Marcus said. "How long do you think?" I asked. "Not long. She's too deep into this." And Marcus was right. We didn't wait long at all. Only 4 days later, the first footage came in. Victoria brought Tyler, the 28-year-old, to our house, to our bedroom. I watched on my secured feed as they kissed, undressed, laughed, like they owned the place. He wasn't nervous. He was comfortable. Too comfortable. Like he had done this before. Many times. They stayed for over 2 hours. Made themselves completely at home. Using my bed. My sheets. When they finished, Victoria lay there, her head on his chest. She laughed softly. "Just a little longer," she whispered to him. "Everything's almost in place." "And then?" Tyler asked. "And then I'll be free," she smiled. "And we'll have everything?" That was it. The final nail. She wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just lying. She was planning to walk away with my money, with her new man, and leave me with nothing. But what she didn't know was that every word was now on tape. The net was closing. The meeting in the hotel. 2 days after I watched Victoria and Tyler in our bedroom, Marcus called again. But this time, his tone was different, sharper, more focused. "She's moving to the next phase," he said. "You need to hear this." Marcus had continued following Victoria's movements, and that afternoon, she met someone new. Not Tyler. Not one of the men from the earlier photos. Someone much more dangerous. "Who is it?" I asked. "His name is Nicholas Hartman," Marcus said. "He's not some random fling. He's connected, very connected." Nicholas Hartman, private wealth consultant, multiple businesses overseas, ties to known shell corporations, rumored to be involved in offshore laundering operations. And Victoria's meeting with him? For what? I asked. "From what I overheard, it's about the money," Marcus replied. The meeting took place in a private suite at the Carlton Grand Hotel. Marcus had planted an audio device earlier. Through the recording, I heard their conversation. Nicholas spoke first. "The account is ready. Once you sign off, everything transfers within 48 hours. Victoria replied, calm and collected. "And there's no way he can track it." "Not if you follow the plan," Nicholas assured her. "By the time your husband realizes, you'll be untouchable." I sat in my office, listening to it on Marcus's encrypted laptop. My hands clenched into fists. She was planning to move everything. Not some of it, not a portion, everything. Marcus paused the playback and looked at me. "If she moves it, you'll never see that money again." For a moment I couldn't speak. It was all unraveling so fast. The woman I built a life with, the woman I loved for over a decade, was preparing to financially gut me while sleeping with her 28-year-old puppet and coordinating with criminals. "How much time do we have?" I finally asked. 2 days, Marcus answered. "That's when she signs." I took a deep breath. My voice steady, cold now. "We're not waiting 2 days. We move now." The counter-strike that night. Marcus and I met in person. We both knew. This was no longer just surveillance. This was war. "If we move now, we have one shot to catch everything," Marcus said. We laid out the plan. First, Marcus contacted a federal financial crime specialist he'd worked with before, someone who handled corporate laundering cases. Quiet, efficient, discreet. We weren't just trying to expose Victoria's affair. We were going to expose her entire financial operation. Second, we secured copies of all the recordings, surveillance footage, account statements, and text message threads Marcus had collected over the last month. Every detail was documented. Every lie. Every transaction. Every moment with Tyler. All of it. Third, we arranged legal protection. Marcus put me in touch with a highly specialized divorce attorney, one who handled high-asset betrayal cases. She reviewed everything. Her words were short but powerful. "You're holding nuclear leverage. Once this drops, she'll have nothing." And finally, we made sure the financial authorities were watching Nicholas Hartman's moves. If Victoria signed that paperwork, she wouldn't just be stealing from me. She'd be committing a felony. "If you play this right," Marcus said, "you won't just catch her. You'll bury every person involved." The waiting was brutal. I had to keep acting like everything was fine at home. Victoria kissed me goodnight, smiled in the mornings, sent cute little texts like nothing was happening. And every time she did, I smiled back, because I knew something she didn't. She thought she was running the game. She had no idea the game was already over. We were now hours away from her scheduled meeting with Nicholas to finalize the transfer. Marcus looked at me that final night before it all unfolded. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow, everything changes." The sting operation. The next morning, the trap was set. Victoria left the house early, as expected. I kissed her goodbye like always, pretending to head into the office. Instead, I went straight to Marcus. Our team was already in place. Federal agents were stationed near the Carlton Grand Hotel, monitoring Nicholas Hartman's suite. Marcus had wired the room with hidden cameras and live audio feeds. Everything was being recorded in real time. At exactly 10:15 a.m., Victoria arrived. Right on schedule. Elegant, confident, untouchable, or so she thought. She greeted Nicholas with a kiss on the cheek, her voice calm and rehearsed. "Is everything ready?" she asked. "Of course," Nicholas replied. "Once you sign, the money moves immediately." They sat down at the conference table inside the suite. Papers were laid out neatly. The contract for the final transfer was sitting right in front of her. Victoria glanced over the documents, then smiled. "I can't believe we're finally here." "Freedom always takes patience," Nicholas said smoothly. Marcus leaned over to me while we watched the live feed. "She's 2 minutes away from signing everything." I nodded, my pulse steady. This was it. As Victoria picked up the pen, federal agents made their move. The door burst open. "Federal Financial Crimes Division, hands where we can see them." Nicholas barely had time to react. Victoria froze, completely blindsided. Her eyes darted around the room in shock and disbelief. The agents moved fast. Nicholas was cuffed immediately. Victoria tried to speak. "Wait. There must be some mistake." But no one was listening. The agents already had full evidence, thanks to everything Marcus collected. One of the lead officers looked directly at Victoria. "You've been under investigation for weeks, ma'am. We have everything." Her face went pale. All the confidence vanished. For the first time, she truly understood. She wasn't walking away with my money. She was walking straight into a legal nightmare. I watched it all live. No screaming, no chaos, just the quiet collapse of her perfect world. "And that," Marcus whispered, "is checkmate." The aftershock. By the afternoon, Victoria was sitting in a federal holding cell. Nicholas Hartman was being interrogated in a separate room. Tyler? He was next on the list. The authorities now had enough to connect all the dots: laundering, fraud, conspiracy. Marcus and I sat in his office, watching as everything unraveled. "You did it," Marcus said calmly. Every piece fell into place. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because now came the fallout. My lawyer was already moving. We filed for divorce that same day. With all the evidence in hand, the infidelity, the financial crimes, the secret accounts, Victoria's legal team barely had room to negotiate. Her attorney reached out within 24 hours. "My client wishes to settle," he said nervously over the phone. "Settle?" My lawyer laughed. "Your client doesn't have a choice. She's looking at felony charges." Victoria was desperate to minimize the damage. She offered to give up every asset: the house, the cars, the remaining joint accounts. But it was too late. The federal case was now separate. She was facing multiple charges: fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to defraud, and tax evasion. Her young lover, Tyler? He flipped on her instantly. As soon as the agents leaned on him, he sang like a canary. He admitted everything: how Victoria funded him, how she planned to vanish with him once the final transfers cleared. Nicholas Hartman? He lawyered up immediately. But with Victoria's full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence, even Hartman was cornered. In less than 72 hours, Victoria's entire world burned to the ground. She was removed from our home. Her accounts were frozen. Her name was blacklisted in every professional and financial network she once used to thrive. And Tyler? The last I heard, he vanished. Cut a deal, entered witness protection under federal custody, and disappeared from the world entirely. I stood in my empty house that evening, breathing in the silence. This was no longer the home we shared. This was mine. Marcus stood next to me and said quietly, "You did what most men can't. You stayed smart. You stayed patient. And now, you're free." For the first time in months, I slept. Deep, peaceful, without nightmares, without guilt. The public exposure. The legal fallout wasn't the only thing that crushed Victoria. Her social life, the carefully curated image she had spent years building, was about to disintegrate just as brutally. Her arrest wasn't some private matter. The federal charges made headlines across financial news outlets and local media. San Diego socialite accused in multi-million-dollar money laundering scheme. Charity leader indicted on federal fraud charges. Husband's secret investigation exposes high society scandal. Our neighbors saw it. Our friends saw it. Everyone saw it. Victoria's once perfect circle of friends, the country club wives, the charity board members, the socialites, all vanished overnight. Phone calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. Her name was erased from every committee and charity list she once proudly flaunted. The whispers started. The betrayal. The scandal. The younger lover. People love a good fall from grace. And Victoria gave them a perfect one. Even people who once envied her, now mocked her behind closed doors. I always knew she was a little too perfect. She thought she could play everyone. But no one felt it more than Victoria herself, because the only thing more devastating than losing her money was losing her image. And her family? Her parents were humiliated. Her siblings refused to take her calls. Even our daughter, who had once admired her mother's elegance and strength, now saw her for who she really was. I didn't need to say a word. The world spoke for me. The final blow came 2 weeks later. One of the biggest national financial news networks ran a full investigative special on Victoria's case, exposing not just her crimes, but her affair with Tyler, her partnership with Nicholas, and even aired pieces of Marcus's footage. Her face, once carefully protected, was now everywhere, associated forever with scandal, betrayal, and greed. There was no coming back from this, not in this lifetime. The closure. It's strange how quickly life can shift from chaos to silence. The months of lies, the nights of fake smiles, the investigations, the betrayal. It was all over. And now there was nothing but quiet. I stayed in the house for a few more weeks, not because I needed the space, but because I needed to reclaim it. Every room used to feel poisoned, haunted by her lies, by Tyler's presence, by the plan she tried to build behind my back. But as the days passed, the house became lighter. I replaced furniture, repainted walls, tore out the bedroom carpet where she once betrayed me. It was no longer our home. It was mine. Marcus and I remained in touch. One evening, over a quiet dinner, he looked at me and said, "You know, most people would have lost everything." I nodded. "I almost did." "But you didn't," he continued. "Because you stayed patient. You let her hang herself with her own rope." He was right. The temptation to explode early, to confront her when I first discovered the lockbox, or when I saw her with Tyler, was overwhelming. But if I had acted then, she might have gotten away with everything. Instead, I waited, and I let the truth expose itself. Victoria ended up serving time. Federal prison. 5 years without parole. Her social life? Gone. Her financial future? Destroyed. Her reputation? Irreparable. Tyler disappeared from the public eye. Nicholas Hartman faced his own criminal charges. And as for me, I rebuilt. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because I refused to let her take my peace with her. People often ask if I ever think about forgiving her, if I ever feel guilty about how far it all went. She made her choices. She built her lies. She tried to rob me of everything: my money, my family, my trust. And when she failed, it wasn't because I sought revenge. It was because I demanded truth. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your reality. But if you stay calm, if you stay smart, you can take back your life. That's exactly what I did. And if you've ever faced betrayal, if you're standing in the fire right now, wondering if you'll ever escape, remember this: you don't have to scream to win. Sometimes your silence is the loudest weapon you have. Thank you for being part of my story. Stay sharp, stay strong, and remember, not every story ends with forgiveness.